Imagine a stormy night in 1845. The flicker of gaslights casting long shadows across a cramped room in New York City. A man sits hunched over a desk, his brow furrowed, his pen scratching feverishly across paper. His eyes, dark and intense, seem to peer into another world, one of mystery, madness, and melancholy. This is Edgar Allan Poe, a literary alchemist who turned personal tragedy into timeless art. His stories and poems, woven with threads of the macabre and the sublime, have haunted readers for nearly 2 centuries. But who was this man, this dark genius whose life was as turbulent as the tales he spun? Let's embark on a journey through Poe's shadowed existence, his revolutionary works, and the enduring enigma of his legacy, a tale as gripping as any he wrote. A life forged in loss and ambition. Edgar Poe was born on January 19, 1809, in Boston, Massachusetts, to David and Elizabeth Poe, itinerant actors scraping by on the fringes of society. His childhood was struck by calamity almost from the start. Before he was 3, his father abandoned the family, likely lost to alcoholism, and his mother succumbed to tuberculosis, leaving Edgar and his 2 siblings orphaned. The Poe children were split apart. Edgar was taken in by John and Frances Allan, a wealthy but childless couple from Richmond, Virginia. John Allan, a pragmatic merchant, saw Edgar's sensitivity and artistic bent as weaknesses, fostering a tense relationship that would shape Poe's life. Frances, gentle but sickly, offered warmth, but her death in 1829 left Poe bereft of yet another maternal figure, a recurring wound in his story. Poe's young adulthood was a crucible of ambition, rebellion, and hardship. At 17, he enrolled at the University of Virginia, dazzling professors with his intellect but plunging into debt through gambling, a vice that enraged John Allan, who refused to cover the losses. Estranged and desperate, Poe fled to Boston in 1827, enlisting in the U.S. Army under the alias Edgar A. Perry. He served diligently, even rising to sergeant major, but the military stifled his restless spirit. By 1830, with Allan's reluctant support, Poe entered West Point, only to orchestrate his expulsion in 1831 by flouting duties, a calculated rebellion to pursue writing. Poe's brightest moments were his literary triumphs, though they came at great cost. Living in poverty, often in squalid boarding houses in Baltimore, Philadelphia, and New York, he poured his soul into poetry, stories, and criticism. As a magazine editor and critic, his tomahawk reviews, sharp, often vicious, earned him both respect and rancor. He could dismantle a rival's work with surgical precision, but his caustic pen made enemies, complicating his career. His personal life, too, was a tapestry of love and loss. In 1836, at 27, he married his 13-year-old cousin, Virginia Clem, a decision that shocked contemporaries but brought Poe profound devotion. Virginia, his sissy, was his muse, but her tuberculosis, diagnosed in 1842, cast a long shadow. Her agonizing decline, marked by coughing blood and fading vitality, culminated in her death in 1847 at age 24, plunging Poe into despair. Her loss infused his work with an almost unbearable intimacy, as seen in poems like Annabel Lee. Poe's battles with alcoholism intensified after Virginia's death, entwining with his poverty and grief. His final days are one of literature's great mysteries. On October 3, 1849, he was found delirious on a Baltimore street, dressed in ill-fitting clothes, muttering incoherently. He died 4 days later, on October 7, at age 40. The cause remains elusive. Speculations range from alcohol poisoning to rabies, delirium tremens, or even cooping, a voter fraud scheme involving kidnapping and drugging. No definitive record exists, and the mystery of Poe's death mirrors the enigmas in his tales. As biographer Jeffrey Myers wrote, Poe's end was as cryptic as his fiction, a final chapter no one can fully decipher. Yet amid the darkness, Poe's genius burned fiercely. He published prolifically, crafting works that birthed genres and reshaped literature. His life was a paradox, a man broken by loss, addiction, and rejection, yet capable of creating beauty that captivated the world. As Stephen King reflected, Poe was the first to show us the nightmare beneath the American dream, the terror that lurks in the heart. The literary tapestry, Poe's masterworks. Poe's stories and poems are like stained glass windows, each pane a vivid scene of horror, beauty, or mystery. Let's explore his most iconic works, delving into their themes, craftsmanship, and haunting power. The Raven, 1845, Poe's most celebrated work. The Raven, is a narrative poem that distills grief into 108 lines of hypnotic verse. A nameless narrator, mourning his lost love Lenore, is visited by a raven that perches above his chamber door, croaking a single word, nevermore. Each stanza tightens the vice of despair as the bird's replies drive the narrator toward madness. The poem's trochaic octameter creates a relentless rhythm, like a heartbeat or a tolling bell, pulling readers into its emotional abyss. Poe called it a study in the human thirst for self-torture, and its blend of gothic atmosphere and psychological depth made it a sensation, recited in parlors and printed worldwide. Virginia Woolf, captivated by its spell, wrote, "Poe's poetry has a strange power to haunt, like a melody that lingers in the bones." The Fall of the House of Usher, 1839. This Gothic masterpiece is a descent into decay, both physical and mental. Roderick Usher, a hypersensitive aristocrat, summons a friend to his crumbling mansion, where his twin sister, Madeline, wastes away from a mysterious illness. The house itself, with its fissure and fungus-ridden walls, mirrors the Usher family's collapse. Poe's prose is lush yet precise, painting a world where the boundary between reality and nightmare blurs. The climax, Madeline's premature burial and her bloodied return, is a visceral shock, symbolizing the inescapable pull of death. H.P. Lovecraft, a disciple of Poe, called it a masterpiece of cosmic horror, praising its fusion of the supernatural and the psychological. The story's exploration of inherited madness and doomed lineage resonates with Poe's own fears of instability. The Telltale Heart, 1843, a chilling study of guilt and paranoia. This story is narrated by a man who insists on his sanity while confessing to a murder. Obsessed with an old man's vulture-like eye, he kills and dismembers him, hiding the body beneath the floorboards. But the sound of the victim's beating heart, real or imagined, drives him to confess. Poe's first-person narration traps readers in the killer's unraveling mind, making us complicit in his dread. The story's brevity and intensity showcase Poe's mastery of pacing, each sentence a step toward inevitable collapse. Charles Baudelaire, who translated Poe into French, declared, "In The Telltale Heart, Poe makes us feel the terror of a guilty conscience with unmatched clarity." The Murders in the Rue Morgue, 1841, widely regarded as the first modern detective story. This tale introduces C. Auguste Dupin, a Parisian sleuth whose analytical brilliance solves a gruesome double murder. The Locked Room Mystery, with its brutal details and logical unraveling, set the template for detective fiction. Dupin's method, observing minutiae and reasoning deductively, foreshadowed Sherlock Holmes. The story's shocking twist, revealing an orangutan as the culprit, blends the rational with the bizarre. A Poe hallmark. Arthur Conan Doyle, creator of Holmes, acknowledged, "Poe's Dupin is the root from which all detective fiction grows. He showed us how to solve the impossible." This work not only birthed a genre but showcased Poe's fascination with puzzles, evident in his real-life interest in cryptography. The Pit and the Pendulum, 1842, set during the Spanish Inquisition. This tale immerses readers in the terror of a prisoner facing torture, trapped in a cell with a descending blade and a yawning pit. The narrator's fear is palpable. Poe's sensory details, from the blade's hiss to the pit's damp, earthy stench, make the horror visceral. The story explores the limits of human endurance, with death looming in every shadow. Its relentless suspense and psychological depth inspired Stephen King to call it a primal scream in literary form, capturing the terror of being alive yet powerless. Poe's ability to merge historical settings with universal fears makes this story timeless. Annabel Lee, 1849, written after Virginia's death. This poem is a haunting elegy for a lost love. The speaker recalls his beloved Annabel Lee, whose death by a chilling wind sparks envy from the heavens. Its lilting rhythm and fairy tale imagery, kingdoms by the sea, angelic foes, contrast with its heartbreaking core, making it achingly personal. Jorge Luis Borges described it as Poe's purest expression of love, a poem that feels like a whisper from the grave. Its tender yet tragic tone reflects Poe's own grief, a love letter to Virginia etched in verse. Ligeia, 1838, this lesser-known but powerful story blends love, death, and the supernatural. The narrator mourns his brilliant, raven-haired wife Ligeia, who dies of illness. He remarries, but his new wife, Rowena, falls ill, and eerie events suggest Ligeia's spirit is reclaiming her place. Poe's lush descriptions of Ligeia's beauty and intellect contrast with the grotesque transformation at the story's end, creating a tale of obsession and the undying will. Its exploration of love beyond death echoes Poe's feelings for Virginia, making it deeply personal. As critic Harold Bloom noted, Ligeia is Poe at his most metaphysical, probing the boundaries of life and soul. Other notable works. Poe's oeuvre is vast, with other gems like The Cask of Amontillado, 1846, a chilling tale of revenge where a man lures his rival to a gruesome fate, showcasing Poe's knack for irony and suspense. The Mask of the Red Death, 1842, allegorizes mortality, with a prince's futile attempt to escape a plague ending in a haunting tableau. The Black Cat, 1843, delves into guilt and cruelty, its narrator's descent into violence mirroring Poe's own struggles with self-destruction. Each work reinforces Poe's themes: death's inevitability, the mind's fragility, and the allure of the forbidden. Poe's style and literary innovations. Poe's writing is a paradox of control and chaos. His prose is meticulous, every word chosen to evoke a specific mood, what he called the unity of effect. In his essay The Philosophy of Composition, he described crafting the raven with mathematical precision, each stanza designed to maximize melancholy. His poems, with their musical cadences, blend beauty with dread, while his stories use vivid imagery to create worlds that feel alive yet nightmarish. His settings, crumbling mansions, shadowy crypts, become characters, amplifying the psychological tension. Poe's influence is seismic. He pioneered Gothic fiction, with its emphasis on decaying grandeur and tormented souls, influencing writers like Mary Shelley and Bram Stoker. His detective stories birthed a genre, inspiring not only Doyle but Agatha Christie in modern crime fiction. His psychological horror, delving into guilt, obsession, and madness, anticipated Freudian themes in modern literature's focus on the subconscious. As Baudelaire wrote, Poe is not merely a storyteller, he is a poet of the soul's darkest corners. Fascinating facts and recurring themes. Poe's life is a trove of curiosities. He was a skilled cryptographer, solving complex ciphers sent by readers to his magazine, a passion reflected in stories like The Gold Bug. His death remains unsolved. Theories include delirium tremens, a brain tumor, or cooping, where victims were forced to vote repeatedly under duress. His personality was multifaceted, charming and witty to friends, arrogant and combative to rivals. He once challenged a critic to a duel, only to settle it with words. His poverty was so dire he sometimes wrote on scraps of paper, yet he dressed impeccably, maintaining a gentleman's facade. His themes, death, madness, guilt, isolation, mirror his life. Orphans, The Fall of the House of Usher, Dying Women, Ligeia, Annabel Lee, and Premature Burials, The Premature Burial, reflect his losses. His mother, Frances Allen, and Virginia, his narrators, often unreliable and tormented, embody his own struggles with identity and addiction. Yet Poe was no mere melancholic, he was a romantic, seeking beauty in tragedy. His tales often blend the sublime with the grotesque, as in Ligeia, where love defies death in unsettling ways. His fascination with the cosmos, evident in his prose poem Eureka, 1848, reveals a mind grappling with existence itself. Voices of admiration. Poe's legacy resonates across generations. Charles Baudelaire, who introduced Poe to Europe, wrote, "He is the poet of the modern age, capturing the anguish of existence with unparalleled intensity." H.P. Lovecraft saw him as a visionary, stating, "Poe's tales touch the terror of the universe's indifference, a horror beyond the human." Stephen King, a modern heir, credits Poe as the great-grandfather of horror, noting, "He made the ordinary terrifying, from a ticking clock to a beating heart." Virginia Woolf, though reserved, admitted, "Poe's imagination has a peculiar intensity, like a fever that burns through the page." Jorge Luis Borges, a master of the cerebral, called Poe a labyrinth maker, crafting stories that trap the mind as much as the heart. Critics during Poe's life were mixed. Some, like James Russell Lowell, praised his genius for the weird. Others, like Rufus Griswold, his literary executor, slandered him as a depraved drunkard, a smear that tainted Poe's reputation for decades. Yet time has vindicated Poe, his work now studied and celebrated globally. The enduring enigma. Edgar Allan Poe was a man of contradictions, a poet of exquisite beauty, a storyteller of unrelenting dread, a critic of razor-sharp intellect, and a soul scarred by loss. His life was a Gothic tale orphaned, estranged, impoverished, yet fiercely creative. His love for Virginia, his battles with addiction, and his mysterious death weave a narrative as compelling as his fiction. His works, The Raven, Usher, The Telltale Heart, are not just stories but experiences, plunging readers into the abyss of human emotion. As we close this journey, picture Poe at his desk, his pen a wand conjuring worlds of shadow and light. His legacy endures not just in his words but in the feelings they evoke: fear, awe, and a strange kinship with the dark. In the words of the Raven, "And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore." Poe's shadow lingers, inviting us to explore the mysteries he left behind, a testament to a genius who turned pain into art.